Hey everyone, this is Maregaal Ben Yaakov. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the Ten Commandments, and what might surprise you is the interpretation thereof from a Jewish perspective and according to the Jewish law or the Torah. That is according to the Old Testament, not the New Testament. I'm trying to stay away from that because this is learning from a Jewish biblical perspective, not oral traditions, not rabbinic, just as is biblical way, and taking the rest of the Torah into consideration when interpreting these things. And so first off, I want to try to give you a new name for the Ten Commandments, because originally and among Jewish people, it's not called the Ten Commandments. That only exists in Christian circles, and practically worldwide. It's what's being taught in Christianity. And let's go for why they are called the Ten Commandments and why they are not called the Ten Commandments in Jewish circles or Jewish society. Well, when Christianity eventually got the Ten Commandments and adopted, the so-called Old Testament, what we call the Tanach, which is not the Old Testament at all. It's valid and still being used today to live by and get our info from. It is our heritage and our culture and things like that. It's like having the Constitution of the United States. This is part of the culture, and that's what defines our laws and things like that, the bedrock anyway. So what happened over time is when the Christians took it over, they read it, and a lot of them don't know Hebrew or anything like that, and so they say the Ten Commandments. So what's going on, and is as to why? Well, we call it the 10 sayings, and that might sound like a joke. Oh my God, how could he say that? But it's literally the 10 sayings, because there's only 9 commandments out of the 10 sayings. And the second saying, what happens in the Christian world, they cut the second saying in half and add it to the first saying. So it reads basically, now I'm summarizing, okay? It basically, in the Christian Bible, paraphrasing, is, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods alongside of me, or besides me. You shall have no other, basically. And so that's where they mess up, because the second command, then they go on with their second commandment out of the 10 commandments, is do not make any graven images, whether things of heaven, the earth below, or things of the sea, blah blah blah. Don't make any images to bow down before them, to worship them, and blah blah blah. So no icons, no idols. So giving an example, like in Christendom, if you were to use scripture verbatim, use crossbreeding, okay? In Christianity, they believe Jesus is actually God in the flesh, one of the second person of the Trinity, even though the Trinity was coined 2 centuries later in 200 AD. But nonetheless, where before they didn't, give you some news, Jesus was not God at all. He was just thought to be the future Messiah. That's it. He's just simply a guy, a man. And it wasn't until later that Jesus was made into a God, not by himself or not by God Almighty, but by mankind turning him into a God. But we'll leave that alone for now. But the point, what I'm saying is, if you were to crossbreed, like commandment number 2 in Christian world of the 10 commandments, would be, you must not make any graven image. So if Jesus is God and you're making an image of him, you are sinning. So you see how easy that is. And so, and for some Jewish circles, pictures of Jesus is idolatry, because Christians do see Jesus as God, or part of the Trinity of the singular God, their singular God, not the Jewish God, by the way. We don't believe in the Trinity, that God has a son, so he never sends a son, things like that. He stands alone. It is pure 100% pure monotheism. Just one being, one spirit. He is a spirit. That's it. And so there is no heavenly family, things like that, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. There is none of that. It's just God and God alone, and he's a spirit. So that's it. So anyway, so for among Jewish people, if an artist makes a picture of Jesus and that artist believes Jesus is God, well, got to throw that picture away. But and that's basically how easy it is to deal with. However, now let's go back. I want to go back. So it's actually the 10 sayings. The first saying is just a statement. It says, "I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt." And why does it start out that way? Because if you read the Torah itself, at the time when the Israelites sinned against the Lord, when they made the golden calf, right before they made the golden calf, Aaron helped them with that. It says something to the effect, "As for this Moses who led us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So make us gods therefore." The elitists, blah, blah, blah. And so the people said, Moses led us out, delivered us from, or led us out of Egypt, when in reality it was El, or God Almighty. And that's why the first statement says, "I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt." So not Moses, not anybody else, but El and El alone. Okay. Now the second commandment is make no idols. And this kind of goes along, if you read the rest of the Torah, you also can't memorialize the names of other gods. I'll give you an example of that. So going back to the commandment, though, this is a commandment within the 10 sayings, the very first commandment of the 10 sayings. The first of the 10 sayings, "I brought you out of Egypt." Now number 2 would be, "Have no other gods before me, make no graven images of them, and to bow down for them or before them," and blah blah blah. And so, but in the Torah itself also says, "You shall not say," I'm paraphrasing, "you shall not say the names of other gods on your lips." So as far as an biblical Orthodox guy who wants to keep the Torah very strictly, you cannot name the stars of the sky or the constellations after other gods, or planets, like Saturn is named after the Roman god Saturn, like, or Jupiter after Jupiter, and Mars is a Greek deity, and things like that. So you can't name planets, you can't memorialize other gods, you can't name the days of the week. Like, I don't know if you know this, but Tuesday is basically Mars, and then it goes to Norse mythology for some reason, where Wednesday is basically Woden or Odin. Thursday is actually Thor, and Friday is Frigg Day. Then you go back to the Greek, it goes Saturn, is the Greek mythology. So it's quite interesting. So you wouldn't be able to do that. So in Jewish, if you want to keep the law and not memorialize other gods' names, it's going to be hard in a Western world. So like if it's Sunday is not a Greek god name, it's just describing this sphere in the sky. So where if you were to say Sol, S-O-L, for the sun, then that'd be a problem. or like the moon. That's not a deity, as far as I know. But just giving you an example. So you would have to say, instead of saying like Tuesday, and it's like, say, Monday, I'll see you tomorrow. Or like, you can't say I'll be there Tuesday, because then you're like memorializing that God and keeping him into existence in the mindset of people. So you can't do that. Or the thing is like sportswear. You'll see that, or some other thing, and like you'll see like there's mutual funds. One is called the Janus funds, which January is named after. So you have a two-headed god, blah blah blah. So another one would be like Nike sportswear. Nike is actually a goddess of victory. So things like that. Or like the music label called Mercury whatever music label. So you can do that, and so it's quite interesting. So you can't so commandment number 2 is you shall have no make no graven images, have no other gods. And to add to that, biblically adding to it, is do not memorialize the names of other gods, and you have to wipe those things out. So blah blah blah. Now this is kind of tricky. The next one, saying number 3, I'm paraphrasing here. It says, you shall not use the Lord's name in vain, and anybody who takes the Lord's name in vain shall be held accountable. I'm paraphrasing. And what does that mean? In Christian circles, or in the circles of Christianity, and sometimes even Jewishness, because here in America, because they're so influenced, they think it's referring to cursing or cussing, taking the Lord's name in vain. That is different. That would be considered blasphemy, actually. But what commandment number 3 is talking about, or saying number 3, I should say, is referring to oaths, actually. Like when you go to court and says, do you swear, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and so help me God? And you say, yes, yes, yes. Like this. Or if you take a vow, you vow in the name of the Lord to, you'll be a monogamous, a man of one woman. We get married and do this and do that. You have to keep those vows. So what's the overall picture? Is saying to keep your word. That's how strong it matters, to the Lord and to the people back then. Is if you give your word, be sure to keep it, okay? Or don't say it at all, or be more, and give yourself some leeway when you say something. Instead of saying precisely, I'll be there at 5. Okay, that's more of exact. But if you say something more roundabout, like say, I'll be there around 5, so it could be 4:50 to 5:10. So you give yourself some buffer. So, or if you say, I might be there, that doesn't mean you will, it just says you might. So you have to understand that. So that's what that is referring to. Now there's some situations in the rest of the Tanach, or what Christians call the Old Testament, is the rest of the Jewish scriptures. Joshua got in trouble because he made a vow with these people that he thought they were from afar off, because they were lying, and they asked him to swear that they'll not harm him, and so he swore to them that he won't harm them, and he turned to find out that they were more local people of the land, part of the people that the Lord wanted to genocide out. And so, but he gave his word, and so he couldn't break his word. So that's how strong keeping your word is. You don't break it once you say it. And so moving on, commandment number 4 is honor your father and mother. And so this has a variety of knowledge to it. It's not like take out the trash, and you take out the trash, but it goes beyond that. You obey their instruction. If you find something like their instruction is foul, then there's other law you have to say. Say you don't honor your parents more than El himself. Okay, El is the God of Israel. Okay, So that's kind of a no-brainer, but some people who may not be aware of L's laws, because you're supposed to burn it in your head and meditate it day and night, like on Psalm chapter 1 you'll read, like that you meditate it day and night, so you just know it through and through. Kind of like a police officer, he's supposed to know these laws of his penal code of whatever state he's in, so, or city and things like that. He's supposed to know the ordinances. So when he pulls you over, there's a reason why he's pulling you over, not just because he feels like it. That's the way it's supposed to be. Whether it happens or not is a different story. But anyway, what was I saying? So obeying your parents or honoring your parents. So if your parent says something that goes against God's law or L's law, of course you don't do it. But other things, hey, I need your help over here. I need you to do this over there. You don't badmouth your parents behind their back. You know, my parent, blah blah blah. I can't stand them. So you're badmouthing your parents. Or in the same way, like giving your parents a bad name because of how you are acting. And that way you are dishonoring your parents. Be like, you see these kids, and you're like, gosh, whose parents are you to raise you up like such a foul kid? You know, stuff like that. So you have to honor your parents in that way. So you give them a good name. But in the same coin, same side of the coin, you're giving yourself a good name because you're acting a certain way. You're growing up, and every parent needs to teach their kids to grow up upright and righteous and doing the right thing in life, not, you know, being absent, you know, things like that. So they teach themselves by other immoral kids, you know. So all the kids join up and they basically make their own ethic code, which is not ethics at all a lot of times. And so it's more like mobster. I get for what I need and forget everybody else. So you honor your parents, even in death. And say, for example, your parents die, and you bury them. And if you want to bury them, now cremation is frowned upon most of Jewish culture, even though the Bible itself says that the people of this certain town cremated King Saul and buried his ashes under a tree. It doesn't. The scripture does not say the Lord frowned upon that or a prophet frowned upon that. Why did you do that? That was our first king. Blah blah blah. Doesn't say anything like that. So, however, it's back in those days, most people didn't do that at all. So, going back to what I was saying, honor your parents also goes beyond death. So you visit their grave, not pray to them, because that'd be like committing necromancy or anything, but you just kind of deal with where their plot of land is or where they're buried and take care of it, meaning you're honoring them even after death, okay? And in the same way, you don't badmouth them after they die, okay? That is if they're honorable people. It's one thing if they're like Ahab or something. But so anyway, so that fourth one is obeying honoring your father and mother. So it's like I said, it's just not simply taking out the trash or doing chores around the house. You know, it's a whole amount of things, okay? And so the next one is, and some inversions of Christian Bibles will get this totally wrong. They'll word it wrong. And the correct way of saying, the fifth saying says, you shall not commit murder, okay? There's a big difference between murder and killing. Okay, and a lot of people get issues with because they get this wrong text and it says killing. So murder is not allowed, killing is allowed, period. And there has to be just genuine cause to kill. So like say for example, when you go to war, that's not murder. That is killing your enemy, you know, team against team, military power against military power, basically. Or if, say, someone is threatening your life and they break in and threaten your life at that point, you can defend yourself, and if you kill them in the process, That's the way it goes. You are allowed to save yourself because he's the one who came on your turf doing the violence. And so you could do kosher violence against him. And if you knock him out, you're acquitted because you're defending yourself. Same way with armed robbery and things like that, or like kidnapping or things like that. So there's a big difference between murder and killing. So killing is legal. Murder is malicious conduct on somebody where you take their life. Killing is justified taking someone's life, like say capital offense. You'll see a lot of Christian people, against the death penalty. Oh, it says do not kill. It doesn't say kill. It says do not commit murder. Big difference. So next one is do not commit adultery. Now this is a big scope. Now in modern times, modern Western culture, it's pretty simple, but in ancient times, it gets not complicated, but it's a little more expanded than modern Western culture. You got to remember, you have to put yourself in, BCE time, before the Common Era time or before Jesus time, okay? Not the modern time where things were changed along the way. So this sixth commandment is do not commit murder. Do not commit adultery is different. Like in modern times, you're only allowed, like in America, you're only allowed to have one wife. Doesn't matter what state you're in. You're only allowed to have one wife. Now Utah, I don't think they allow that anymore, but they won't do it in a recognized by the state, but they won't say nothing if you just do it on the side. That'd be almost like a guy having several girlfriends all at the same time. It's kind of almost viewed like that. They don't care what you do on the side, but the state's not going to condone more than one wife. So anyway, in Western culture, you're only allowed to have one wife. So what does adultery mean? Adultery in America and Western thinking is different from biblical thinking, and there's a reason why for that. See, in America, if I'm married and I sleep with a girl, that is considered adultery. Okay, doesn't matter if the girl is single or married, it doesn't matter. And then vice versa, if my wife does that and she sees some other guy, that's considered adultery. But back in ancient times, in the BCs, according to the biblical text, adultery is only reserved or is based on the status of the woman, not the guy at all. Okay, why is for that is because in biblical Judaism, which is the actual books, the Old Testament, according to biblical Judaism and the culture of the Middle East, of all of them back then, a man is allowed to have more than one wife, but a woman is only allowed to have one man. And so adultery is strictly based on the status of the woman, not the guy at all. So like say for me, if I'm married and I sleep with a single lady, even though I'm married, it's only fornication. That's it. And I don't get a death penalty over fornication. I'm obligated to marry her, unless her dad says, oh no, he's a clown, I don't want anything to do with that. And then I can't marry her, because the family of those times, it was, I wouldn't say every marriage was arranged, but a lot of them were arranged. They look at your status, can he take care of her, blah blah blah, or he sees down the line, will he be able to take care of her in the long run, or whatever. And so anyway, so I could be with a single girl even though I'm married, because polygamy was allowed at that time. So this is why Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. David had like at least 14 wives, I think, if I remember, if I counted right. Jacob had 2 wives and 2 concubines, so a total of 4 women, and so forth like that. Where Abraham had Sarah, then Sarah had Hagar as a slave girl, so that was a concubine, and which was Sarah's slave girl, and so blah blah blah. So what was I going to say? So I can have, according to biblical texts, like I said, it's only based on the status of the woman. So if a woman who is single goes with a married dude, that's fine. It's not a death penalty. But if she's married and goes with either a married guy or a single guy, that's a death penalty for her and the dude. So, because she's fooling around while being married. And on the same wavelength, if I betroth a girl or I engage a girl, put a ring on her finger like you do nowadays, back then they didn't do rings, but if you make a vow she's going to be my wife, so there's a spoken word there, that vow basically binds her to you, so she's on the same status of being married. So if you sleep with a betrothed girl, that's a death penalty for both of you. So anyway, that's so that's a death penalty for the engaged woman and the guy, whoever it is. Not the engaged guy. You leave him alone. He didn't do the sinning. So adultery is a whole different deal. And so, like I said, adultery in the eyes of biblical Judaism, or according to the biblical text, was strictly 100% based on the status of the woman, not the guy, okay? Because back then a guy could have more than one woman, where the woman could only have one guy. So anyway, moving on. So that you might not have heard of that because you're just used to like the church, and they don't teach a lot of that. And the synagogue will touch on that once in a while, but they just kind of move on, and just skip over it. And the congregants are just kind of used to their Western culture, so they really don't dive into it. So, next one, we did the murder, did adultery. Now it says, do not steal, okay? That's pretty frank. Don't take other people's stuff without asking. It's like... and commandment number 10, or saying number 10, is basically the root of all that. So I'll get back into stealing. And stealing is a whole wide range, whether doesn't matter if it's deception or armed robbery or things like that. Doesn't matter. Taking someone's belongings without either buying it or asking for it and they give it to you. You're not allowed to do that. So, and that's point blank pretty easy. So, now, saying or commandment number 9, is, now this might throw you for a loop, because a lot of new Western world Bibles with the Christian Bible will reword it too, just to paraphrase a lot of times, or you'll see it in a church, and they write, "You must not lie," but it doesn't say that exactly. What it says, you shall not bear false testimony against your neighbor. That's all it says. And so what does that mean? It's actually a deeper thing than just blunt lying, okay? Because if you just lie on the street to a guy, that's not that what's that referring to at all. Even though you shouldn't be lying. But like I say, I'm right at 5'11" and a half, something like that. I'm 6'3". That's lying, but that is not what this saying is referring to. What this is referring to is a court type issue where someone can get in deep trouble. So, say for example, you'll see this all the time in American culture. I mean, every once in a while you'll hear it on the news that somebody will accuse somebody of something where they are actually innocent and never did anything of the sort. I saw this person, kill this dude, and ran off. And they'll say, what is description? And just because she has a bone to pick against the dude, he'll say blah blah blah, like brown grayish hair, kind of brown grayish eyebrows and goatee, he wore a black hat and things like that. So you're getting someone in for trouble who never did anything. Why? Because you were taking away his freedom. Because in modern times, he's thrown in jail, and if he doesn't have a lawyer, blah blah blah. I might be guilty of a capital offense, be sitting on death row, which you have heard about people in Texas being on death row, and even were put to death. And it wasn't until after they died, when science eventually caught up, they did DNA, and the dude was totally innocent. But he couldn't lawyer up or anything like that. He didn't have the power, and it could be racism mixed in there too. And some of that was some of the problems. Why? Because of racism playing into effect. So you're getting someone in trouble through the legal process because you're fibbing and lying and telling stories, and that's what that commandment is referring to, not your typical lying on the street or malarkey storytelling. No, I flew to the moon on a magic carpet ride. That's just, storytelling, things like that. Or just lying, to some friends. Oh my God, I was blah, blah, blah. Me and this girl went out. That's might be false. You never went out that night, but that line, you're not allowed to lie either, except for in rare certain circumstances. The biblical texts allow you to lie on certain things. I'll give you an example, okay? And a lot of people fail this example because they want to be goody two shoes, when actually you're being quite evil and vile, because they think they think the commandment says do not lie. It doesn't say that, okay? In the 10 sayings. So here's the scenario I give. Okay, say if you're, I'm going to use the worst of all time frames. So during the Nazi time, and nice, beautiful German people were hiding Jewish people in their home, the Nazi police would basically knock on the doors, any Jews here? So they would say, no, there are no Jews here. There's no one hiding here. I haven't seen any. And so they would move on if they didn't search the house. And sometimes they would go into some super bad hiding places. They would actually go in the pit of the bathroom of the outhouse, because they're not going to look in there. So most of the time, because it's nasty and disgusting. And so that was a kosher line, because you are saving the life of an innocent person, and this is a vile regime. So on that circumstance, you are allowed to lie, and that has nothing to do with commandment number 9 of the so-called Decalogue, or the saying number 9, okay? Thou shalt not bear false testimony against your neighbor. See here, the saying, it's like gossip, false gossip. But it's beyond just normal gossiping. Gossiping might cause a little drama, blah, blah, blah. And that's, it could include gossiping if it gets you some kind of trouble, but it's also referring to more hardcore legal problems. So it's just more of a step above. But gossip is is in there somewhere, So there you see the difference between lying, kosher lying, and what this saying is actually talking about, bearing false testimony against your neighbor, or ill will, and getting them in serious trouble, whether for putting them in a death penalty where he has to pay a fine, he gets jail time for all this or all that. So now moving on to saying number 10. I think I got them all, I'm not sure. Saying number 10 is the root of many of the things I just said before. Because it all starts right here in your mind, and it basically says, in a nutshell, says do not covet. And I'm going to round about it because I don't have it in front of me. It says do not covet. Basically, do not covet. It says do not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's slave, because they had slaves back then, your manservant, male servant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And so back then, like I said, they had slaves. And so what is the deal? Coveting leads to theft. Coveting can lead to murder. And because a lot of times what you see is, like, what happens with murder is the person who's doing the killing wants something or wants to be paid back on something. So he's coveting something. Like, say, for example, if back in the day when marijuana was illegal around, in many places, some guy would want to steal like a big old stash of marijuana, and if someone puts up a fight, they'll kill him for it. And so the theft right there of stealing something led to a murder. Or the same thing, it says, do not covet your neighbor's wife. I want to break down coveting too, because there's a kosher covenant, covenant. I can't even say it. Coveting. There's a kosher way of coveting, and there's a wrong way of coveting. Okay, and it's broken down as desires or wants, but not doing something that leads to evil. Okay, but leads to a kosher way. So it says, do not covet your neighbor's wife. Well, if you don't covet your neighbor's wife, you don't commit adultery. So it leads to adultery. So it all starts right here. So Jesus, I'll go to the New Testament, was not saying anything new. I mean, it goes like this. You have heard that it says, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, anybody who looks at his neighbor's wife lustfully has already committed adultery in his heart. Yeah, that's what commandment number 10 is doing. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, because that's exactly what he's doing. Because why? He wants to be with her. He looks at her body up and down and finds her attractive and wants to be with her sexually. And that's how it all starts. So you kind of nip it at the bud with a commandment. He sees that. He reads your mind, and you're not allowed to do that. You got to keep your mind pure and holy and upright. So all wicked deeds start right here, and good deeds and pure and righteous deeds in the world start right here. So what kind of mind do you want? Do you want to be filthy, nasty, crude, and corrupt, and crass? Or you want to be holy, upright, genuine, sincere, a light into the world, and a light for your society? So you choose. And you could either be lazy or get off your butt and make a living for yourself and supply income for your family or loved ones or whatever. And so, I mean, you don't have to just, I'm offshooting, you don't have to work to help people you don't know necessarily, but you can't ignore certain people either. So, but anyway, he doesn't want you to covet in order to, take things, by force, because that's what coveting leads to. So where's the kosher coveting come in? Okay, this is where you're allowed to covet and desire and long for. That's what business is about, and things like that, to get ahead and things like that. Oh, I covet a house like that. Maybe not that person's particular house, but you can even get that particular house. So how's it kosher coveting? Okay, you see a gorgeous boat, and the evil way is you go at night and you steal the boat, and that would be unkosher coveting. But how you make it a kosher coveting is you're like, man, I really like that boat. So in modern times, you knock on the door, hey, are you willing to sell that boat? I think it's really cool. It's been sitting there for a while. And he goes, yeah, I'll sell it to you. So therefore, that's kosher coveting. So you're allowed to do that type of thing. Okay. So that's basically it of the 10 sayings. And remember, they're just the 10 sayings. So let's go over them real quick again. The first one is, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. The second one is idols and no other gods. The other one is, do not misuse the name of the Lord. Basically, keep your word, and it's even stricter when you put the Lord's name in there. The other one is, I didn't even talk about it. The other one that I forgot is the Sabbath. I knew I forgot something. That's the fourth one. Keep the Sabbath. Okay, and what is the Sabbath? Now, the Sabbath is, this might throw the Christian world upside down for those who've never been taught by a genuine Bible preacher versus a custom preacher. And the Sabbath of El, the God of Israel, the Sabbath, starts like right now, like you can see it. See, I'm not gonna. Well, maybe I can't turn the. Can I turn this? Okay, let me see this. You see how darker it is right now? Yeah, it's getting dark. Well, you can't see the sun, so it's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, Sabbath in biblical Judaism, or according to the Bible, Sabbath starts Friday evening at sunset. Like right when like if my hand is the sun right here. Stop everything when the sun is about right there. Okay? Then, Saturday evening, you don't stop right there. You wait till it's down, and you wait till a few stars come out. Now, this waiting for the stars to come out is more of a safety feature, just in case type of thing. It's kind of custom, just wait for 3 stars, because one might be a planet, versus a star, and planets come out earlier sometimes. So, anyway, so you basically are resting for 25 hours, basically, or 24 and a half, basically, maybe 25. And so the Sabbath is from Friday evening to Saturday evening at sunset. It is not Sunday. And this is the eternal law. If you look in the law, it says this is the eternal law for a statute forever, throughout all generations. Okay, that's the biblical law. And God's law. Remember, El gave the law to Moshe, and so that's the eternal law. So that's what that's referring to. He shall keep my Sabbaths, and he says elsewhere, this is where you have to read the whole Old Testament, or the Tanach, and see the overall picture of all these other commandments, what is and what is not allowed to be done. I'll go through some of them. Some in Exodus says, you shall not kindle a fire on Shabbat, on Sabbath. During the time of the manna, when the Lord rained down manna on the desert floor, they went out and gathered it every day, but on the 6th day there was a double portion. And basically the Lord said, I'm paraphrasing to make it more sensible, because when you read it sometimes you're like, I didn't get that. So he's basically saying on the 6th day he gave a double portion. So on the 7th day, don't bother going out, because I didn't give you any. So however, some people went out to go look for it, and the Lord got mad. And because you're not allowed to work on the Sabbath day, you're not allowed to go out and search for stuff, because that's a type of chore working. So you're not allowed to do chores. You're not allowed to cook. That's the whole point of the manna, having it on the 6th day. You're supposed to just lay it up and take it easy, rest, because what's the point of the Sabbath? It was a point to have your body refreshed for the following work week. And so you can't do anything on the Sabbath that would deplete your strength. So just laying around, not go jog or whatever like this, not go ride a bike. You can't even pick up a bike during the Shabbat. So you have all these laws that constitute what goes on in the Sabbath. So it's just not from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. There's all these laws involved. Okay, and you can't conduct business. Now in a modern world, this really gets into a dilemma in a modern world. Why? When I was doing orthodoxy myself, biblical orthodoxy, not rabbinic, even though you have to have some oral stuff in there, because in modern times they didn't have gas, electricity, cars, motorcycles, and things like that. So how does this stuff apply? Okay, so it says in Amos 8, I believe, they were getting in trouble for doing business on Sabbath. And also Nehemiah, the people were coming down to the gates of Jerusalem to do business on the Sabbath, and Nehemiah got really mad. So you're not allowed to conduct business. You can't sell, you cannot buy. Well, in a modern world, your electricity, gas, and water most of the time is on a meter. You pay for it. So if that meter is running during the Sabbath, you are conducting a business transaction. And so therefore, before the sun sets on Friday, you have to turn off all of everything that's based on a meter. So you're going to have to figure something out, like get candles for your light, get solar lights for light if you want to do it that way, put firewood in the fireplace before sun sets on Friday, or get propane fireplaces so it just keeps on running, things like that. So, and if you want glasses of water, you pour out your glasses of water first before sundown, and you lay them out, and you drink it all day and night, whatever. And so everything is prepared beforehand, and that was the point of the manna. You give them 6 days you shall gather it. On the 7th day you get a double, or excuse me, on the 6th day you get a double portion. So that manna was left out. And if you remember, that special manna on the 6th day didn't grow maggots, where the other one did if you left it overnight. So anyway, so the Sabbath gets really deep, real strong, and it's not Pharisaic where you get into all these oral things, but not everything, every situation in life is thrown out there in the Bible, especially for modern times. So anyway, so let's go back over. So you have, see if I can remember it this time. So you got, I'm the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. No gods, no idols. Do not use the Lord's name in vain. Keep my Sabbaths, obey your parents, honor your parents, do not commit murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness against any neighbor, and do not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. So, and that's basically it, the 10 sayings, or the so-called 10 commandments. So, and please support this channel by hitting the like button, and even more so, hit the subscribe button. So every time I upload a new video, you'll see it or be notified about it, and actually helps my channel, and I'm hoping to build up this channel as well to be a good influence on society at large, and teach people about the biblical text, and that's all I'm interested in. All right, thank you.